All right, welcome back, everybody, to the channel. Today, we're gonna continue reading Karlson. And I actually recently got a new book in the mail that I ordered for the next reading, which is called "The Wonderful Adventures of Nils." But that's after we finish this book. So I'll talk more about that some other time. But today's chapter is called Karlson's Invitation to a Bun Feast. So we'll see what that's about. How do you fancy a little snack between meals? Said Karlson. Hot chocolate and buns on my front porch. The refreshments are on me. Smidge just looked at him. Oh, there was no one as wonderful as Karlson. Smidge felt like hugging him. He tried to as well, but Karlson just pushed him away. Easy now, take it easy. You're not at your granny's now. Well, are you coming? Wow, yes, answered Smidge. But actually, I'm locked in. I'm being kept prisoner in here. That's what Creepy Crawly thinks, said Karlson, and she can carry on thinking it for a while. His eyes started to gleam, and he did a whole series of delighted little hops in front of Smidge. Do you know what? We'll play that you're in a dungeon and having a ghastly time with a horrible Creepy Crawly as your guard, and then along comes a terribly brave, strong, handsome, perfectly plump hero and rescues you. What hero? Asked Smidge. Karlson gave him a reproachful look. Try guessing, won't you? Oh, you mean you, said Smidge. Then I think you ought to rescue me right away. Karlson was happy to oblige. Because he's super quick, too, this hero, Karlson assured him. Quick as a hawk, oh yes, and brave and strong and handsome and perfectly plump. And he comes dashing in and saves you, and is as brave can be. Whoa, there he comes. Karlson took a firm grip on Smidge and rose quickly and valiantly into the air. Bumble barked when he saw Smidge disappearing out of the window, but Smidge shouted, Easy now, take it easy, I'll be back soon. Up on Karlson's front porch, 10 buns were laid out in a row, looking very tempting. Honestly paid for, every single one, said Karlson. We'll divide them equally, 7 for you and 7 for me. That won't work, said Smidge. 7 and 7 makes 14. There are only 10 buns. Karlson hurriedly raked 7 of the buns into a little pile. Well, these are mine, at any rate, he said, putting a podgy hand over the pile of buns. They teach you children such a daft way of counting at school these days, but I shouldn't have to suffer for it. We'll take 7 each, like I said, and these are mine. Smidge nodded. I can't manage more than 3 anyway, but where's the hot chocolate? Down there with Creepy Crawly, said Karlson, and that's where we're going now to fetch it. Smidge looked at him in alarm. He didn't relish the thought of another meeting with Miss Crawly and the possibility of more clips around the ear, nor did he see how they could get at the cacao tin. After all, it wouldn't be standing at the open window like the buns had been, but on a shelf by the stove, right in front of Miss Crawly's nose. How on earth will we do that? Asked Smidge. Karlson chuckled and looked pleased with himself. Well, I wouldn't expect a little ignoramus like you to be able to work it out. But the world's best jiggery poker happens to have taken charge of things, so you can relax. Yes, but how? Began Smidge. Well, said Karlson, haven't you noticed that your block of flats has got balconies for beating carpets on? Smidge had, of course. Mum used to shake out their kitchen rags on the balcony. It was very handy, just half a flight of stairs up from their kitchen door. Only 10 steps from your door, said Karlson. Even a little dawdler like you should be able to toddle that distance fairly quickly. Smidge couldn't see what he meant. What am I supposed to be doing on the balcony? Karlson sighed. Do I have to explain everything? You stupid little boy, you. Well, pin back your lug holes and I'll tell you my plan. I'm listening, said Smidge. Right then, said Karlson. Stupid little boy lands on the balcony courtesy of Karlson Airlines, toddles down half a flight of stairs and rings long and hard on the doorbell. Get it? Angry Creepy Crawly in the kitchen hears the bell and stomps off to open the door so the kitchen's empty. Bold and perfectly plump hero flies in through the window and straight out again into the tin of cacao in his hand. A stupid little boy rings again just to be extra annoying and runs back to the balcony. Angry Creepy Crawly opens the door and is angrier still when there's nobody standing out there with a bunch of red roses for her. She lets out a roar and slams the door. Stupid little boy stays giggling on the balcony until perfectly plump hero comes to fetch him for a bun feast on the roof. Hasten Hobson, Smidge. Guess who's the world's best degree poker? Now let's get to work. And before Smidge could say a word, he was on his way from the roof to the carpet-beating balcony. Karlson went into such a nosedive that the wind whistled around Smidge's ears, and he had worse butterflies in his stomach than he'd had on the Big Dipper at Grunelund Funfair. Then everything happened exactly as planned. Karlson whirred off to the kitchen window, while Smidge scuttled down and rang the doorbell long and hard. He soon heard footsteps inside coming to the door. Then yes, you've got it. He giggled and dashed back to the balcony. A second later, the door opened down there, and Miss Crawley stuck her head out. He could see her if he peeped carefully through the glazed part of the balcony door, and it was obvious Karlson had been right. Angry, creepy Crawley was even more angry to find nobody outside the door. She muttered loudly to herself and loitered in the doorway for a long while, as if expecting whoever had rung suddenly to appear before her eyes. But whoever had rung was stifling his giggles on the balcony, and he went on doing it until the perfectly plump hero came and fetched him for a bun feast on the hero's front porch. It was the best bun feast Smidge had ever been to. Now everything feels much better, he said, as he sat on the step beside Karlson, munching his bun and drinking his chocolate and looking out over the roofs and steeples of Stockholm as they glinted in the sunlight. The buns were delicious, and the chocolate was excellent too. He had made it himself over Karlson's open fire. Karlson had brought everything they needed, milk, cocoa, and sugar from the kitchen below, and properly paid for every last bit with 5 ore krona left on the kitchen table, said Karlson. If you're honest, then you're honest, and there's nothing to be done about it. Where did you get all those coins from? Asked Smidge. From a wallet I found in the street the other day, said Karlson, full of 5 ore pieces and other cash. I feel sorry for whoever dropped the wallet, said Smidge. I bet they were fed up. Oh well, said Karlson. If you're a taxi driver, I reckon you need to keep an eye on your things. How do you know it was a taxi driver? Asked Smidge in surprise. I saw him drop the wallet, of course, said Karlson. And I could tell he was a taxi driver by the badge on his cap. I'm not that stupid, you know. Smidge gave Karlson a reproving look. You really couldn't do that sort of thing with any lost property you found. He would have to tell Karlson, but it needn't be now. Another time would do. For now, he just wanted to sit here on the step, enjoying the sunshine and the buns and the chocolate and Karlson. Karlson had already almost polished off his 7 buns. Smidge couldn't eat that fast. He was finishing his 2nd bun. The 3rd one was on the step beside him. Oh, I feel much better now, said Smidge. Karlson leant forward and looked him straight in the eye. No, you don't. You don't feel well at all. He put his hand on Smidge's brow. Just as I thought, a clear case of bun fever. Smidge looked surprised. What's that, bun fever? It's what you get from eating too many buns. Then you must have it worse than me, said Smidge. You might think so, said Karlson. But you see, I've had bun fever when I was 3, and you can only get it once, just like measles and a whipping cough. Smidge didn't like feeling ill in the slightest, and he tried to tell Karlson so. But Karlson forced him to lie down on the porch and eagerly splashed his face with chocolate. So, you don't faint, explained Karlson. Then he grabbed Smidge's last bun. No more buns for you. It would mean certain death. But how lucky for this poor little bun that I'm here. Otherwise, he would have been left all by himself here on the step, said Karlson, and gobbled up the bun. Now he isn't so lonely anymore, said Smidge. Karlson patted his stomach contentedly. No, he's with his 7 friends now, and he's happy. Smidge was happy, too. He lay there on the porch, feeling just fine in spite of the bun fever. He was full up and didn't mind Karlson taking that last bun at all. Then he looked at his watch. It was a few minutes to 3. Smidge started laughing. Miss Crawley will be coming along any minute now to let me out. Oh, I wish I could see her face when she goes into my room and I'm not there. Karlson patted him kindly on the shoulder. Tell Karlson all your little wishes, and he'll arrange everything for you. Just pop in and get my binoculars for me. They're hanging on the 14th nail along from the settee, pretty high up. Climb on my carpentry bench. Smidge giggled. But I've got bun fever, you said. Doesn't that mean I have to lie still? Karlson shook his head. Lie there, giggling. Think that helps cure bun fever? No, it's just the opposite. The more you zip around the roofs and houses, the sooner you'll be restored to good health. Any medical book will tell you that. And since Smidge was quite keen to be rid of his bun fever, he ran obediently into the house and climbed into the carpentry bench and unhooked the binoculars that were hanging from the 14th nail along from the settee. Hanging from the same nail was a picture with a little red cockerel in one corner. Karlson had painted it himself. It came back to Smidge now that Karlson was the world's best cockerel painter. What he had painted was a portrait of a very small and lonely red cockerel, or so it said on the picture. And it was quite true that his rooster was smaller, lonelier, and redder than any Smidge had ever seen in his life. But he hadn't had time to look at it any longer, because it was almost 3 o'clock and he was in such a hurry. Karlson was ready for takeoff when Smidge came back with the binoculars, and before Smidge could open his mouth, Karlson was whirring off with him across the street, where they landed on the roof opposite. Then Smidge understood. Hey, what a great lookout point. If you've got some binoculars and want to look into my room, well, we do. We have, and we do, said Karlson, putting the binoculars to his eyes. Then he let Smidge borrow them too, and he could see his room as clearly as if he was in it. There was Bumble asleep in his basket. There was Smidge's bed. There was his desk with his homework, and there was the clock on the wall. It struck 3, but there was no sign of Miss Crowley. Easy now, take it easy, said Karlson. I know she's coming because I can feel shivers down my spine, and I'm getting goosebumps. He snatched the binoculars from Smidge and raised them to his eyes. What did I tell you? The door's opening, and here she comes, as cute and cuddly as a cannibal chief. He gave a big chuckle. Aha, her eyes are really popping out of her head now. Where's Smidge? What if he's fallen out of the window? That must have been what Miss Crawley thought, because she dashed over to the window looking scared stiff. Smidge felt really sorry for her. She leant out and looked down into the street as if she expected to see Smidge there. Nope, he's not there. Bad luck, eh? Miss Crawley looked reassured. She retreated into the room. She's looking for you now, said Karlson. She's looking in the bed, and behind the desk, and under the bed. Oh, yes, she is, and wait. She's going into the wardrobe. She must think you're lying, and a little heap in there crying. Karlson gave another big chuckle. It's time to start jiggery poking her, he said. How? Asked Smidge. Like this, said Karlson, and before Smidge could object, Karlson whisked him across the street and set him down just inside the window. Ace and Hobson, Smidge. Be nice to creepy crawlies, said Karlson, and he flew off. Smidge didn't think much of that sort of jiggery poking, but it was up to him to do his best, so he tiptoed very, very quietly across the room, sat down at his desk, and opened his book of sums. He could hear Miss Crawley rummaging around in the wardrobe, tense with excitement. He waited for her to come out. And she did. The first thing she saw was Smidge. She shrank back into the wardrobe door. From there she stood, staring at him in complete silence. Then she blinked a couple of times, as if to check she was seeing properly. Where in the world were you hiding? She asked him in the end. Smidge looked up innocently from his sums. I wasn't hiding. I've just been sitting here doing my adding up. I didn't realize you were playing hide and seek, Miss Crawley, but that's all right. You get in the wardrobe again, and I'll be happy to look for you. Miss Crawley didn't reply. She just stood there for a while, her mind working hard. Surely I can't be falling ill, she mumbled. So many odd things seem to happen in this house. Just then Smidge heard someone cautiously locking the door from the other side. Smidge giggled. The world's best creepy crawly tamer had obviously flown in through the kitchen window to teach Miss Crawley how it felt being locked in. Miss Crawley didn't notice. She just stood there, saying nothing, and looked puzzled. Very strange. Oh, well, you can go out and play now while I get the dinner. Thanks very much, said Smidge. I haven't got to be locked up in any longer, then. No, you haven't, said Miss Crawley, going over to the door. She grasped the handle and pressed it down once and then again. But the door wouldn't open. Then she threw her whole weight against it. That didn't help. The door stayed firmly shut. Miss Crawley let out a yell. Who's locked the door? She screeched. I think you did, Miss Crawley, said Smidge. Miss Crawley snorted. Nonsense, how can the door be locked from the outside when I'm in the inside? I don't know, said Smidge. Could it have been Seb or Sally? Wondered Miss Crawley. No, they won't be home from school yet, Smidge told. You know what I think, she said. I think there's a ghost in this house. Smidge nodded. Oh, it would be great if Miss Crawley thought Karlson was a ghost, because then she might leave. Surely she wouldn't want to stay in a house that was haunted. Are you afraid of ghosts, Miss Crawley? Smidge asked. Not at all, said Miss Crawley. I'm glad of them. Just think, I can be on television now, too. You know how they have a series where people talk about being haunted. That's what's happening to me, and a single day here would be enough for 10 of those programs. Miss Crawley looked very pleased. That'll annoy my sister Frida, you may be sure. Frida's been on television, you see, talking about all the ghosts she's seen and the ghost voices she heard. And I don't know what, but I shall be able to go one better now. Have you heard any ghost voices then, Miss Crawley? Yes, don't you remember them mooing outside the window just now when the buns went missing? I shall try to imitate that on television, so people can hear what it sounded like. And Miss Crawley gave such a moo that Smidge jumped clean out of his seat. Something like that, said Miss Crawley, with satisfaction. But then an even louder mooing came from outside, and Miss Crawley turned terribly pale. It's answering me, she whispered. The ghost's answering me. I shall say that on television. Lordy Lord, how jealous Frida will be. And she told Smidge how Frida had boasted on television about all her ghostly encounters. If you believed her, you'd think our part of Stockholm was teeming with ghosts, most of them in our flat, but never in my room, always in Frida's. And you know what? One evening a ghostly hand appeared and wrote a warning to Frida on the wall. My goodness, she needed one, said Miss Crawley. What sort of warning? Asked Smidge. Miss Crawley thought for a minute. What was it again? Oh, yes, I know. It said, beware, your boundlessly short days should be spent with more gravity, said Miss Crawley. Smidge didn't look as if he understood a word of it, and nor did he. Miss Crawley had to explain. It was a warning to Frida to change her ways and start living a better life, without so much silly nonsense. And did she? Asked Smidge. Miss Crawley sniffed. I wouldn't say he did, not at all. I wouldn't say she did, not at all. She still shows off and thinks she's a TV star, even though she was only on there once. But I know somebody who's going to be one better than her now. Miss Crawley rubbed her hands. She was so much looking forward to going one better than Frida that she didn't care about being locked up with Smidge. She sat there, quite happily, comparing Frida's hauntings with her own, until Seb got home from school. Then Smidge shouted, Open the door, I'm locked in with Miss Crawley. Seb opened the door, very surprised. Whoever locked the two of you in here, he asked. Miss Crawley just looked mysterious. You can find that out from television in due course. Then she was in a hurry to get the dinner ready. She strode off to the kitchen. A moment later, there was a loud scream from the kitchen. Smidge ran to investigate. Miss Crawley was sitting on a chair, even paler than before, pointing open-mouthed at the wall. It wasn't only Frida who got warnings written by ghostly hands. Oh, no. Miss Crawley had got one, too. It was scrawled on the wall in big letters you could read from meters away. Beware, your shamelessly expensive buns should be filled with more cinnamon. And that's the end of the chapter for today. So that's funny. And Karlson wrote that at the end to make fun of Miss Crawley more. But yeah, so next chapter will be on Monday at 4. So I hope to see everybody there and have a wonderful weekend.